Sunny Hostin has sunk to an even lower point, something I honestly didn't think was possible.
I also think we have to look at self-defense here because there seems to be two systems of justice at play in this country.
After Karmelo Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison, Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin focused on what they believed were flaws in the case, but Rita Panahi pushed back strongly and refused to let those arguments go unchallenged.
Just about everything she said was a lie, including the claim that she feels great sympathy for the victim, even as she defames him in death. What a callous witch.
And she has the evidence to back up her claims. So, let's take a look at what The View had to say.
He was sentenced to 35 years in prison, which he's appealing. The case has a lot of people divided. Some people believe that race was a factor in the trial because there were no black jurors. They were all the three black jurors that were there were educators, and they were released.
They were struck.
For that. And some folks think, no, he got a fair trial. But is this a jury of his peers?
I don't think so. You're supposed to have a jury of your peers, and you're not supposed to just strike someone because they're black. And in this case, they gave the reasoning that they're educators, and this happened, these were high school students, and this happened at a school track meet, so they couldn't be impartial because of that. I don't think that's an appropriate reason.
It might be the best ones, too.
Yeah, I don't think it's an appropriate reason to strike black jurors, especially when it's a young black teenager on trial, and especially when that particular area is made up of 10% of an African-American community.
Sunny, a former federal prosecutor, has often been criticized by her opponents for taking positions they believe are driven more by politics than by legal principles. Bill argued that the Supreme Court has made it clear that race cannot be used as a factor in selecting jurors because doing so violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. He also pointed out that, during jury selection in this case, several potential jurors acknowledged that media coverage could influence their judgment. One prospective black juror even said he would struggle with the idea of sending a sister to prison. Even with those details, Bill argued that Sunny believed the process still fell short. As the discussion continued, he accused her of misrepresenting the facts and making claims that he believed were unsupported.
I also think we have to look at self-defense here because there seems to be two systems of justice at play in this country. And there have been for a very long time. I was part of the system, so I understand that, and I believe that to be true. In this case, this young man, you heard him say he put his hands on me, and I told him not to. The kid that died, and I have so much empathy for him and his family's loss. That kid was 200 pounds. This kid was 130 pounds. And so, and the other kid was also taller than he is. He was the only black kid under the tent. And the victim here had his twin brother with him, who was also a very large person. If you don't fear for your life, if you weigh 130 pounds, I weigh 130 pounds. Facing somebody that's 200 pounds, I would be terrified of that. So I don't understand why self-defense was rejected by this jury.
According to the commentary, Sunny expressed sympathy for Austin Metcalf, repeatedly referring to him simply as the kid, while critics argued that she misrepresented key details about his role in the incident. They also pointed out that Karmelo was not the only black student inside the tent, noting that another black student was present as well and later testified as a witness during the trial. With that context in mind, let's hear Rita's perspective on the case.
I don't even know where to start with that. Just about everything she said was a lie, including the claim that she feels great sympathy for the victim, even as she defames him in death. What a callous witch. For the record, Karmelo Anthony was not the only black kid under that tent. In fact, a black witness testified against him. Karmelo is not 130 pounds. His own high school bio lists his weight as over 160 pounds. And frankly, it doesn't matter. I don't care if he weighed 95 pounds. He brought a deadly weapon to a track meet, instigated a fight, and then stabbed an innocent kid in the heart. As for Austin Metcalf's twin being there, is Sunny now suggesting that Karmelo Anthony had something to fear from him? The twin who held his dying brother in his arms as he bled to death? You know, we mock The View, we laugh at the lunacy, but when you break it down, These leftist loons are nasty pieces of work.
Those remarks may sound strong, but critics argue that Behar and Sunny approached the case with a clear bias from beginning to end. Instead of focusing on the evidence presented in court, they were accused of framing the discussion around their own interpretation of what had happened. Considering this was one of the most widely covered trials in the country, opponents argue there was only so much room to reshape the narrative before viewers began questioning the claims being made. Sunny, in particular, continued to stress the self-defense argument throughout the conversation until Sarah Haynes stepped in and began pressing her with tougher questions on the issue.
I had a question because I was wondering why the self-defense claim didn't work, and I had read that it said you have to use the same amount of force that was brought against you. So if someone pushes you and you push them back, that's self-defense?
That's not the standard because it's not only use but attempted use.
Well, so that's what I'm asking.
So if you felt your life was in danger and you felt he was going to do more than just push you, and you weigh 130 pounds and you're outweighed by 70 pounds,
so you can use
you know what when I looked at this case though, which to me is just sad every which way, right? There's two families that are destroyed. There's Austin Metcalf lost his life. Karmelo Anthony's going to spend at least 17 years in jail. So this is just tragic. But my question is, how did this get to this point, and where the hell were the adults?
Yeah,
these were two 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean.
What I understand is, it is normal for runners to go under tents.
My kids.
According to testimony presented during the trial, multiple witnesses said Karmelo was asked to leave the tent numerous times before the confrontation escalated. At the time, they were simply high school students attending a track meet, and many people have argued that, regardless of any difference in size between those involved, no reasonable person would expect a disagreement like that to end in a fatal stabbing. Critics also questioned efforts to immediately frame the case as a racial issue, arguing that the focus should remain on the specific facts rather than forcing the incident into a broader narrative. Stephen A. Smith also earned praise from some viewers for pushing back against that approach on his show, encouraging people to gather the full context and examine the evidence before rushing to conclusions.
Ultimately, we got to pick our battles. We got to be better than that. What we going to do, got to come together to resolve some of these issues. What's the best way to do it? First order of business is to be real. To be real about the evidence that we're looking at and go from there and pick our fights and pick our battles. But what's inescapable and what's undeniable is that Karmelo Anthony said he put his hands on me, so I stabbed him. He said it's not alleged, I did it. Confessed to doing so and told people he did so. Not only that, there were witnesses that saw it happen. Not only that, Austin Metcalf's brother was there. And his brother died right in front of him. So when we sit up here and we think about the battles that need to be fought, we got to be mindful of what's worth fighting for and what's not worth fighting for. I'm talking about the merits of the case, not the human being. Because all of us are God's children. And my heart goes out to Karmelo Anthony and his family. I wish this didn't happen. I wish that he's not going to spend at least the next 17 years in prison, barring an appeal that's won. But he killed someone. And his argument of self-defense in the jury's eyes didn't hold weight.
It's a heartbreaking situation because so much pain came from a tragedy that never should have happened. One devastating decision changed the lives of two families forever. One of the most powerful moments came from Metcalf's father, who urged people not to turn the case into a racial or political debate. Instead, he emphasized that it was a human tragedy. He spoke about how a single terrible choice would have lasting consequences for both families, reminding everyone that the real focus should remain on the lives forever changed by that moment. Supporters of that view argued those words deserve to be remembered long after the headlines disappear, rather than the heated debates and accusations that dominated parts of the media coverage, including comments from Sunny and Whoopi that critics viewed as unnecessarily focused on race. Share your thoughts on the discussion in the comments below. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.